154 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine.
I don't know why, I just felt like I couldn't say words. But
I don't know why I'm laughing, but I'm laughing really hard.
I started laughing while I was talking because I was like, these aren't wording. These words aren't wording today. So that's how this episode's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be a giggly one.
That's fine. It's kind of a fun book, I find.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is a fun book.
Yeah. I like the inside of the main character's brain.
Yeah. I like the modernity of it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting into the big words.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously we're starting a new book. We're kind of jumping into talking about it before we talk about it. But
we haven't even said what book it is or anything.
I know. So we're doing Bride by Ali Hazelwood.
Yes, Queen.
Yeah. So I love Ali Hazelwood. I started with her first book, The Love Hypothesis.
Yes.
Because I heard that it was a Lowe fanfic originally, and then she published it. And after I saw that Star Wars movie, I was like, yes, Lowe is my entire life now.
Yeah, you were obsessed for a good hot minute.
Yes, and I read so much fan fiction. And I was on Tumblr like nobody's fucking business about Lowe.
Yeah. Oh, good old Tumblr.
I know, right?
Does
It's just
Tumblr
funny.
still happen?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I have the app on my phone, but I don't think it is downloaded anymore. Like, it's... But I think if I... Yeah, there's still an app there. It's just not used enough to be downloaded.
Right.
So, yeah. So I read every book of hers as it comes out, basically. And she actually has a book coming out... Well, it came out earlier this week. I'm still waiting for mine to come, so that's why I say it's still coming out.
Right.
But it came out February 4th. Tuesday, I believe.
Yes.
Makes sense. So yeah, I love all of her books. This is her first fantasy book. Actually, it's not called fantasy. It's called paranormal romance.
Yeah. So
what about you?
Kind of in the same realm as like Gothicana and like...
Yeah.
Like, it's not as deep into the world building as a romantasy. Like, romantasy is very heavy in the world building. This is sort of like... It's like a Hallmark movie with fantasy elements.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Love it.
It's... Do you know what? It's sort of like... The Night Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Just darker.
Yes.
What a February.
Yeah, you'd think we would have done something more lovey-dovey,
yeah. But everything we do is lovey-dovey.
Yeah, we don't... I don't think we've ever done anything that wasn't HEA.
No.
Like, there are cliffhangers of books that we've read, but the series in general are supposed to be HEA.
Can I just reveal something that I found out this week? And this is a spoiler for a really old book series, so like...
Okay,
maybe
we'll say the series first.
So this is for a spoiler for the Divergent series.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. Okay.
So if you haven't read those books and you plan to, skip ahead like 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was complaining to some colleagues the other day about the Divergent series. And
you were complaining about a book series that came out.
Just stop. Don't.
2013.
Okay, so it's only 10 years ago. 12. Anyway. Well, I wasn't the only one. Other people were also complaining about it. we were sharing our complaints about how the series ends. Spoiler alert, main character deceases.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the books, from what I remember, do you remember? So the movies started coming out before the books finished.
Okay.
I think.
Which is a common thing around then to happen. So, like, I'm not surprised.
Right? So, like, the Divergent movie came out, and I think it was only Divergent and Allegiant. Insurgent?
Insurgent is 2.
Okay. So I think that one was out. I don't think Allegiant was out yet.
Mm-hmm.
So Divergent came out, and we loved the movie and the book.
Yeah.
Right? And then we read Allegiant, and I was very upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sorry.
Because there's no HEA.
Yeah.
And so then the movies kept coming out. And I watched the first one, and then I watched the second one, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm not watching the third one.
Well, the third one I think was split into
parts.
2,
so
which is too much.
I do think I watched part 1, and then I was just like, I refuse to watch part 2 because no.
Yeah.
Do you know? Did you watch them all?
No.
Apparently, they changed the ending of the 4th movie, and she lives.
Oh. I hate it.
I hate it, but I also kind of love it. And I'm like, maybe I'll watch it now?
Yeah. Well, we'd have to watch all 4 at the same time and together.
Of course. Yes. Naturally.
Yeah, I liked the ending of it.
I know you do. You like it because it was depressing and you just like surprises.
Well, yeah, I liked that it was different. I wasn't like, give me the depression.
It's like, I can do that on my own.
Yeah. So true. But yeah, I just liked that it was different than every other book. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Main characters can be killed?
Yeah.
After you read 3 entire books about them? It seems illegal. Doesn't it seem illegal?
Yes. And such a fucking waste of time.
Right? So
you build up these characters to be in love, and you make us love them and love them together, and you want them to be happy, and then it's ripped out from underneath you.
Yeah, but I think the other part of it was I just loved him so much more than I loved her, and I was like, he'd be better off with me. So, you know.
Anyway, I don't remember why I started talking about this. It's fine.
Oh, because we were talking, I was like, I don't think we've done a book that's not an HEA. Because it's Valentine's month.
It is.
It's the month of the Valentine.
It's also, there's Kindness Week at some point this week. I think it's like the last week of February is Kindness Week.
Oh,
so do something kind for someone, everyone listening.
We'll remind you.
Probably won't, but like, I'll try.
I'm gonna make a note.
All right. So yeah. The only reason I read Bride is because you gave it to me to read.
I sent it to your house.
You did. Send it to me in the mail.
Yeah, we live near each other, but with our cards we get free shipping for books. So I was like, I'm not going to a store picking up a book, and I'm what's wrong with the world.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah. Yeah. Jesus. I was just going to make a bad joke, but I'm not going to do it.
Anyway.
Okay.
So I liked it. I've read it, and I liked it.
Yeah. You haven't read any of her other books, though, have you?
I think I have some on my shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if I've read something by her, or if I've read something, I think I've read, like, Hannah Grace, or something like that, like they're on the table right next to each other, and like they look the same, so you just pick up one and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think so I think I have like the Love Hypothesis, and I think I've got another one down there of a girl with a bun and glasses, like
that's the type. Yeah.
So, I don't actually know, to be honest. Nothing against Ali Hazelwood. There's so many of them now. I don't know the difference. I obviously know they're different people, but like literally all the book covers are the same thing.
Yeah, they're all really similar.
So
it's always cartoony, and then it's like sex.
Yeah. And they're all on like the fiction book talkie table or something like that. Like
popular on TikTok.
Yeah, so I do have some books down there. I don't know. I honestly can't remember if I've read stuff by her or if they're just by similar authors.
Yeah, which is fair. So
anyway,
I guess we'll get into it. So yeah, I guess Ali Hazelwood is a romance, and now I say romantasy. I know it's called paranormal romance on the back of the book, but I'm calling it romantasy because that's what we do. Author. And she's also a scientific writer with many peer-reviewed articles about brain science, and she has a PhD in neuroscience.
Interesting.
My brain.
So she's a smarty pants.
Yeah. Her first book, like I said, was The Love Hypothesis, and it was a Lowe AU fanfic, and it was incredibly popular. Until a lot of people were like, wait, this is Lowe? And I was like, that's the best part! So she actually writes predominantly contemporary romance books, which I am not normally a fan of, but I just eat up her writing, and I don't know why it is, because there's even tropes in them sometimes that I hate, but I just can't get enough of her writing. So maybe I'll figure it out during these 4 weeks with this book.
Can I be honest? I'm pretty sure I accidentally... The whole reason I read the book Lessons in Chemistry was because I thought it was The Love Hypothesis.
I started that over Christmas, and I just couldn't get into it, but I only just read the beginning.
So I do find that it's very different from what we normally read, but I found that once I got into it, I was into it. It was good.
Yeah. I just read a fantasy book before it, and I was really in the mood for another fantasy book, but I was in Labrador, and I couldn't have my pick of book, and so I started reading it, and I was like, no! Threw it across the room.
I don't like you.
This isn't what I want right now. Yeah. So, Ali Hazelwood. She writes contemporary romance books. Generally, they're from women in STEM point of view, which makes sense with her background. Mm-hmm. And she does tackle a lot of female in academics issues, which I love in her books. But she recently wrote a YA book too, which was about a woman who plays chess and the sexism in that, which I appreciated.
Oh, so like the Queen's Gambit.
More than likely. I haven't watched it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I don't like new things.
I feel we're just talking it. We're just let's just have a talk on the things we like.
That's what this podcast is. So yeah, this book is a vampire werewolf human book that is apparently becoming potentially a series, maybe a duology, not really sure. But she does have the next book in the works. And her new book, Deep End, is coming out this week, which is about a diver and a swimmer. And I'm like, so it's made for me.
Where's the diving? It was made in?
Well, just like a scuba diver, not like an Olympic diver.
Oh.
So it's made for me.
Oh, no, I get it now. I legit thought you meant Olympic diver.
Yeah. But I'm reading a book now which has a hockey player and a figure skater in it. And it's a very popular book.
Icebreaker?
And it is Icebreaker.
Right.
But they're talking about her trying to, have you read it?
Yes.
She's a pair skater and she's trying to do a quad.
Yes.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. I know.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
I know.
And the hockey, we're not shown a lot of it, but it doesn't seem like they also understand the concept of hockey. No. And shifts in hockey.
No.
But, she she even, like, the last thing I read, she was even like, it's really uncommon in women's skating, and even more, like, uncommon in pairs. I'm like, what do you mean
uncommon? It's not, it doesn't happen. It's impossible.
And they're like, she's like, yeah, my partner can just do a quad every single time he goes out on the ice. And I'm like, there are Olympic men figure skaters who can't do quads every time they fucking go out on the ice. Nope. There might even be some that can't do them at all, because it's, like, relatively new.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I know.
I'm still reading the book. I'm 70% through. I'm gonna finish it, but... I know. And I'm not even a figure skater.
I just say, just wait for the end.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I'm so pissed, and I'm not even a figure skater. And I'm worried that it's gonna go somewhere that's going to make me want to shoot it.
Yeah, just wait for it.
And now I think it will.
Oh.
Good times.
Yeah.
So, we're reading Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Even with all the tangents we're going on, that's the book we're doing today.
We're trying.
We are trying. So we're doing chapters 1 / the prologue to chapter 6. So, the book starts, every chapter starts with a quote. I don't know how long it took me to figure out what the quotes were, but I think you figured it out within, like, at least you figured it out within the first 6 chapters.
You do? Okay. Great.
Maybe not.
We'll see.
Okay. You might have a guess within the first 6 chapters. Okay. I'll just say what it is. So the quote at the beginning of the prologue is, "This marriage is going to be a problem. She is going to be a problem."
Oh, yes. Okay, never mind. I got it.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I feel like you get that the quotes are kind of, like, his point of view. Yes. Okay. I was like, is that not obvious? I hope it is. If I spoiled it, I'm very sorry. And I don't think it's ever, like, it expressly comes out and says that it is. But it might. I just don't remember. Whatever. So, we get that the vampire war began several centuries ago. The female main character is meeting and marrying her husband today, and she thinks of, like, I guess her childhood and her friend Serena at age 11 talking about running away from their caretakers and hiding in the human territory. And Serena said that she would marry the main character so that she would be accepted by humans, and the main character was like, yes, I'll marry you. So that was all of the hopes and dreams she had of getting married. But that was 14 years ago, and they didn't get married, and Serena is long gone. I was like, long gone? What? Okay. She thinks that she, like, actually tried to meet the groom before, but was told he was too dangerous to meet. Yikes. She's like, I'm marrying him, like,
he's too dangerous.
What the fuck? Yeah. And that he was too busy because he's the alpha.
He's the leader.
Which we know.
He's the one to trust. Sorry. That's a Disney reference for Zombies. The movie Zombies. Specifically Zombies 2. And my kids sing it all the time. And so do my students, actually. They go,
okay.
He's the leader. He's the alpha. He's the one to trust. Something is something is something is something. We're in this pack for life. Ow! We're wolves. We own the night.
And it's called Zombie.
Well, yes, because it's zombies. So the first movie is zombies versus humans. And then the zombies end up getting accepted into society. And then the second one is Zombies 2. And the zombies and the humans are have to, like, they're against the werewolves. And then by the end of that...
Do the werewolves get accepted into
Yes, by the end of it.
Oh my god, it's an AGA!
And then there's Zombies 3.
Is it vampires?
No, it's aliens. I know.
I hate it.
I know.
Boo.
But they did do an animated show of shorts based on it. There are vampires there.
Good. Love me a vampire.
And mermaids.
Oh, I love me a mermaid too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. She's all dressed up in, like, a bridal jumpsuit, and she has her makeup and hair done, and the makeup artist put like a dark green stain on her wrists and throat, saying that he researched wear customs and her husband will like it. And she also mentions that like she does her hair in an updo sort of way to like hide her pointed ears. I'm like, interesting.
Sin.
Yeah. Owen, her twin, shows up then and jokes that he hopes that they vaccinated her for rabies, which I do like the jokes in this book. It's pretty funny.
The jokes are hilarious.
Yeah. So we get that the wares and the vampires fought over security, so it's actually humans staffing it, and nobody's happy about it, so that's why they agreed to it. Like, you know, of course.
I can be honest though and say that if I was either a vampire or a werewolf, I would not be happy with human security because they'd be fucking useless.
Well, exactly. What are they going to do? I guess they have guns, which
you may not just don't bother with security at all then.
Well, that's what I was thinking. But I did watch Underworld last night, and they also have guns, and they do a lot of damage with their guns, but they have special ammunition. Love Underworld. So Owen then asks her how long she thinks until her groom tries to kill her, and then he's like, do you think he'll actually just eat your corpse because he's a dog?
Yeah.
So great. And she just like kind of plays along and then just like agrees with him, and she just doesn't really care. And we're like, okay, this is interesting. But then they have a moment and they get like a bit serious, and he calls her Misery, which is her actual name, which is another thing that like is so random and stupid, but I actually just love it.
I know, it's such an awful name.
Yeah. So they start speaking in the tongue, which I guess is vampire.
I also hate that they call it the tongue, because yes!
I could have made it sloppier for our podcast listeners, but I didn't want to.
We all know.
But you can imagine what I was doing.
We all know what you did.
So yeah, he says, well, we as the reader kind of get that, like the last time that they tried a marriage, the purple of vampires' blood ran and the green of wolves ran together. So I do like that they have different color blood. That's like, big fan. But it was a massacre. And Owen tells her not to do this, and she says she has to, and that like she's just a hostage. And then their father shows up, and he's like, is everything okay? And her dad's obviously a piece of shit.
Of course he is, because dads are always pieces of shit.
Right? And then he's like, you should smile. They say it's a woman's best day as her marriage or wedding day. And it's like, ugh. And then he calls her needlessly defiant, and he's like, there's no going back once the hand fasting is complete. And I'm like, hand fasting? I don't even know what that is, and we don't see what that is, but I guess...
We know what hand fasting is.
Oh, is that a thing in the real world?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. Explain.
It's like an old... I feel like it's like a Irishy term for getting married, like you hand fast. It's like, I think it's now. Don't come for me if I'm wrong. But I think like hand fasting is like when you get your hands tied together in that ceremony. You know how there are certain ceremonies that tie ribbons around your hands together. I think
yes, you are correct.
That's called hand fasting.
Yeah.
See?
You are right.
I'm not dumb sometimes.
Okay. So, interesting. I just didn't know that was a thing. And she just says she's done this before, and on a first read, you're like, what? She's married someone before? Like, what are you talking about? And then we also get that weddings are apparently, like, now just a human thing. Vampires have evolved past monogamy. And she just doesn't know anything about them, so she can't really say. But they don't see their weddings, I guess. We also get, like, a kind of general description that, like, vampires are, like, willowy, and they have lilac eyes and pointed ears. And, like, she's walking in, and she's looking at her side, and she's like, she doesn't have any friends there. And that I guess all of the vampires would be nice to Owen because he's the heir, but they'd be shitty to her because I guess she's the spare, but maybe even worse than that. Kind of makes you wonder if it's like, did he just pick Owen because he's a boy, or did he pick him because he was born first? Like,
yeah.
Don't know. The wolves are on the other side, and they also don't like her. But they're like physically warm, like heat emanating off of them, and obviously strong heartbeat. But wolves are also stronger and faster than vampires, and basically everyone in the room hates her. And she can hear everyone whispering that she was also the human collateral for 10 years. And we're like, what's that? And someone else says she likes the attention, and then someone else is saying this will either stabilize or cause full-out war. And then someone's actually saying, like, do you think they're gonna fuck tonight? So, you know, all a bunch of gossip.
Fingers crossed.
Right? It's not a real marriage until he penetrates her.
Woo, woo.
God. So she's walking up to the front, and the groom is whispering with his best man. And she knows he's handsome because she's actually, like, looked at the pictures that she got of him. And her father is, like, telling her to be careful because he's dangerous and not to cross him. And she's like, you're literally marrying me to this guy. Yeah. Like, this is a shitty time for this warning.
It's fine.
Yeah. But then she's kind of, like, imagining that the best man is having the same speech with the groom. And it makes her kind of giggle because she's like, nobody would say that about her, that she's, like, dangerous and not to cross her. Which is kind of cute, but it makes her husband look at her, and his eyes are like a pale green that is almost white, and he looks very dangerous, and he's clearly never seen a picture of her, and he doesn't look happy about how she looks. Yikes. But she thinks to herself that she doesn't care, and she, like, squares her shoulders and, like, walks up to him. And I will say, like, this is a thing in Ali Hazelwood's books, and I know you need conflict, but it's very much like the women can't read the what, which I kind of like because I hate when it's books and, like, we talk about this all the time when someone's immediately like, fear went across their face. And, like, how would you know? How do you know what fear looks on that person's face? So I do appreciate that they get it wrong, but it is common.
Yeah, but also it seems like they get it wrong, like, just for plot reasons. Like, there has to be a misunderstanding. Wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, like, I guess this one, it also just makes sense, because everyone hates everyone. It's a Romeo and Juliet situation. Yes, it is. So, yeah, she just, like, squares her shoulders and walks up to him. She's like, I don't care about anything. And then his pupils widen and his nostrils flare, and he seems shaken. And she's like, oh, this seems more like he hates me personally instead of just because of who I am. And it's like, immediately, if you read romance, you know what's happening.
Yep.
We're not going to say it, just in case you don't know, but sorry if this gave it away too.
Yeah.
But he inhales her scent and then licks his lips and then stares at her. And it gets, like, awkward.
A bit creepy, to be honest.
Yeah. And, like, his best man has his claws out, and Venya, the head of her father's guard, and also, I guess, her bridesmaid, has her fangs out, and then the humans are reaching for their guns, and I'm like, oh, shit. Like, this is set in America, I guess. Yeah. So, she actually, like, I like how defiant she is and how she's just like, fuck it. I do appreciate that a bit. But she tells him she doesn't care how little he likes her or it or whatever. But if they want to avoid a second aster, is that how you say it? It's a flower. Is that what it is? So. Aster?
Yeah.
Okay. And then he just grabs her arm. And she kind of pulls away, and he has to, like, catch her before she falls down, and then he's, like, caging her, and the officiant, like, tries to talk, but he just growls, and I'm like, how is this not the hottest thing everyone's seeing? Yeah. Why is everyone losing their minds? Because it sounds hot.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
Me too. And it starts to be, like, chaotic, and someone's crying, and she, like, senses his blood, because vampires can do that, and she just thinks that it's good. And then he makes a guttural sound that makes her knees weak. And he asks how she smells like this. And it's just like...
Smells like what?
Okay. Who knows? Maybe it's the green on her.
Oh, yes, all that green.
So, 10 minutes later, they have their rings on, and they've sworn to love each other until the day they die.
Great.
Okay. That's literally, I think, what the line is. Like, I didn't skip anything. That is literally the line. So then we get to the next chapter, and we just get that, like, his seconds tell him that the vampire woman backed out, but they have a replacement, and he says, we proceed as planned, and they're like, do you want to look at the file? And he says, no, it changes nothing. They're all the same anyways. And you're like, of course he's going to get a comeuppance for saying that, or thinking that.
Yep.
So then we go to 6 weeks before the ceremony, and Misery's at work, and she's talking to a coworker, Pierce, who's, like, just slimy.
Yeah, seems a bit of a dick.
Just don't like him. Yeah. And he's just telling her not to take it personally, and she's thinking to herself that she doesn't. And he says, Walker didn't say what she thought she heard, which was nasty bitch. And she's just like, well, I did breach his firewall that he's been working on for weeks in less than an hour. And she thinks, like, it was super easy, and she even ended up ordering a new hamper in that hour.
Uh-huh.
So, like... but she says Serena's cat is sleeping in hers, so she sent Serena a text saying she owes her $16, but she got no reply, which is the norm lately, which is interesting.
Yikes.
So Pierce starts to say that she should make more of an effort because people see her as aloof, and I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, no, that's not
We all hate you.
You can't do that, dude.
No. But he is cut off by Vania, who says Misery's name, and then says, Misery is hard to find. And Misery's just like, yeah, that's by design.
Yeah.
And Pierce, like, turns around and tries to talk Vania up, and he asks if she's a friend of Misery, and she says she's known her since she was a child. And then he asks, oh, what was she like as a kid? And she just says she was odd and difficult, if often useful.
Oh.
And I'm like...
That's nice.
You only knew her for, like...
very little time.
8 years at most. Like, you're shitty people.
Yes.
But then she says that she's Misery's father's right hand, head of his guard, and she's summoned to the nest. Okay. Other than Owen, she thinks she hasn't actually spoken to another vampire in years. So, like, this isn't a common occurrence. Pierce stops laughing and actually asks if they're LARPing, which is just funny. And would be ridiculous, but, you know, live action roleplay for anybody that doesn't know what LARPing is. But Vania, like, snaps her fangs at him, and he just loses his mind and yells that a vampire is attacking. And she just, like, takes out a card that grants her diplomatic immunity, but, like, everybody is running out of the building after he yelled that, so there's nobody there to actually take it. Which I kind of love.
Yeah, it's funny.
But Misery just says that she liked this job, and it was easy, and they bought her circadian rhythm disorder excuse, and they let her work at night, but it's obviously ruined now. So she leaves with Vania, and she goes to the nest, and she thinks, like, she brought Serena here once. And I almost, like, thought that it was going to be a romance between her and Serena at a few points, because, like...
They keep talking about it?
Yeah, which, like, I do get, because it's her only friend, but... So, the nest is the center of the community of vampires, and it has, like, all of the amenities that a vampire could ever need, and it has suites there, and her family, I guess, lives there, and other rich people. And they pass by, like, all of the LARP rulers, so Misery's name is Misery Lark. So, like, the vampires obviously have a, what is that called? Ruling family, but it's, like,
Monarchy?
starts with an M. Yeah, it starts with an M. Monarchy. Good job.
Yay.
So she passes by all the rulers, and she thinks the only one other than her father on the wall that she recognizes is her grandfather, who came into her room when she was asleep one day and just yelled about her being destined for a grisly death when she was a child. And I'm assuming this was before she was 8.
Yikes.
So that is awful. And also an interesting, like, is it foreshadowing? Is this, spoiler alert, Divergent?
Yeah.
So she asks Venia then if her father's sick, and she just rolls her eyes and says, like, he wouldn't want her there for it if he was sick. Which is like, she's like, you've been among the humans too long. And she's like, okay. So she walks into her father's office, and 2 walls are windows, and we get the sun is actually toxic to vampires in large quantities, but they covet it, and, like, they can block out all the harmful shit if they, like, buy expensive windows, so it's kind of like a status thing. So the city is split. Like, you can see the city out the window, and it's split by a river, and there's, like, vampire territory and were territory, and it's the rivers in between, and there's only one bridge with guards on either side, and no one has gone across since before Misery was born, which seems insane.
It does seem insane. Like, what if there was a store across the river that you really just wanted?
Yeah. Although, this is terrible. But I guess it's kind of like... it's kind of like the whole U.S. Canada, U.S. Mexico tariffs thing happening now. You're like... Anyway, that's all I'm not politicking. We're not a politics podcast.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God, I can't deal.
We would be so unhappy.
Just why would we? But anyway, she says that she's heard that he's not dying, and he says he assumes she's fine, and that she's been okay for the last 7 years. And we're like, okay, he hasn't seen her in that long. Then he tells her she should take out her brown contacts because someone might think she's human. But obviously she came straight from work, so... but she thinks there's no point anyway because apparently she shaves her fangs down every week so that they're not pointy anymore. So that's automatically a giveaway that, like, she's trying to... Fit in with humans. And then he asks if her friend is safe. And she's surprised, but he says her calls with Owen are monitored. So clearly there's something going on with Serena.
Her only friend.
Yes. So she sits across from him and she sets her, like, a timer on her phone to 10 minutes and asks why she's here. And he asks why she's angry. And he says, like, he kind of asks why, like, she's always angry. And he says, like, the right choice is the one that ensures happiness for the largest number of people. And it's kind of something, he even, I think, said it in the prologue as well. Like, it's kind of like, I guess, the vampire motto. And he says that she was that choice and she should feel pride. So this isn't even about the wedding because she doesn't even know about that yet.
Yikes.
And then he tells her there's going to be a wedding. And she's just shocked because, like, vampires don't do monogamy, as we kind of already got. And it's mostly because, like, they struggle to have children, so it's kind of like...
a free-for-all.
Yeah, and they kind of want people to try to go around and try to fuck everybody to see if they can get pregnant, basically.
Woo!
So she asks whose wedding, and he says yet to be decided. And he tells her that the humans had an election, and Arthur Davenport wasn't reelected as the governor. And Maddie Garcia is the new one. And the vampires had an alliance with Davenport, kind of against the Wares. And even if, like, they still hate each other, the humans and the vampires kind of had, like, an agreement, I guess. But Garcia won't even meet with her father, and her office told him that they will be stopping the collateral program. and they're going to exchange the human and vampire collaterals next week. And Misery just says it's a stupid practice, but her father says it's like kept the peace for over 100 years. And we kind of get a rundown of what the collateral thing is. So each side, human and vampire, trade a kid at 8 years old for 10 years. And basically, if they break the alliance, the kid is going to get murdered. So Misery was the 11th collateral, and her counterpart was actually Davenport, who was the governor's grandson. So it's always somebody who's kind of like connected to power.
Yeah, because they think that they'll
care.
Yeah. They won't want those kids hurt.
Yeah. So her father tells her then that 4 vampire teens were out partying, and they like made a bet with each other, like teens do, to do something dangerous. To swim across and touch the were territory, and were missing. And one father started arguing to retaliate, but that would cause a war. But it's not the vampire way, because it's the good of the most, blah, 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 blah. But actually, 2 days later, they showed up unharmed. And she's shocked by that, because, like, normally they would just immediately be dead. But she realizes that there must have been a change in leadership. And her father's, like, kind of impressed that she deduced it. And he's like, I should have picked you as my heir.
You should have. Yeah, you should have. I don't know why you didn't, you D-bag.
Yeah. But he explains that somebody challenged the old alpha, who was a huge piece of shit, and Roscoe is dead. And the new alpha agreed to meet with him. And he's already had this meeting, and the new alpha is not weak, but he's like amenable to talking to vampires. So she asks about the wedding, and he explains that like apparently there's been 5 interspecies marriages between the vampires and werewolves, and when the marriages were ongoing, there was no fighting.
Yikes.
But then a wife died 200 years ago, and another marriage was arranged, which ended in the Aster, which we've heard of a bunch, which is just a bloodbath. The wares turned on the vampires, and there was like a sea of purple blood with a tiny bit of green. So that's why they call it an Aster, because that's what the flowers look like.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he says, like, at least during the time that they had a human alliance with the vampires, the wares, like, didn't have an alliance with the humans. So they didn't feel like they could be overtaken and overpowered. But now, apparently Garcia won't meet with him and is meeting with the wares. So he's worried about that.
Yeah, they're worried.
Because if they go against...
Yeah, they're just worried that their, like, time is up.
Yeah. Because there's... we just heard, like, it's always hard for vampires to have babies, so, you know. They could get wiped out, I guess. And he tells her that the alpha believes in unifying all the species. And we kind of like... He kind of jumps back and tells Misery, he's like, do you know why I chose you as collateral? And he says it's because she was withdrawn and stubborn and different. And Misery just like kind of loses it, and she was like, what do you mean? Because she says like she was bullied, like badly, like pushed out into the sun naked and called names, because they all knew that she'd be the collateral. And like we get that they told everybody that she was the collateral when she was 6, so it's not even like she was old enough to be a fully formed person. Like, it's just wild.
Yeah.
But he's just like, if the wares and the humans have an alliance, they could wipe out the vampires. And Misery laughs when she realized, like, what he's actually, like, asking her to do. But he offers compensation and says, like, she'll be set for life, and it's just a marriage in name, and she'll need to live in the were territory for 1 year.
A whole year?
Yeah. And she just says, like, she can't be the first choice. And he's just like, you're not. And you're not the second choice either. It's like, okay, great.
It's like, thanks for, being honest with me.
Right? And he does tell her it's actually going to be a collateral, so they are going to take a were too, and then she's going to go over there. So it's literally the same thing as when she was a child. And she just says no, and he pleads with her, and he's like, there's so few vampires born this year, and she's just like, I don't care, and she goes to leave, and then he says, Moreland is the first alpha to, and she just stops in her tracks, and she's like, wait, what's his name? And he's like, Lowe Moreland. And she just thinks she's gonna get married. We're like, what? What the fuck happened?
She's a weirdo.
Yeah. So we get another quote, and it is, he used to think all vampires looked the same. He may have been wrong.
Who said that? Or no one?
It's the quote at the beginning of the chapter. So
I don't know. For some reason, I all of a sudden was thinking that, even though it did come from the beginning of the chapter, it was obviously said by a real person.
Oh, yeah. So, present day, Governor Davenport is asking why her parents named her Misery. But she explains, like, the council named her. And he asks if there were, like, rituals or sacrifices involved, and she thinks of, like, how all humans are curious like that, and, like, Serena asked her too when they met. But we get kind of a bit of a rundown on, like, the vampires in this world. So crucifixes and garlic don't do anything.
Correct.
They use blood banks, and she says feeding is gross off of humans, and then she also says humans kill more people than vampires anyway. And Serena says, and I'm not trying to get political, it's literally in the book, but Serena says it's indirectly, like insurance and gun laws. That's a commentary on real life. Vampires also don't need to be invited in, and they can't mind read, and we kind of get, like, all species are actually pretty similar, it's just like a genetic mutation, which is a common vampire thing.
Yeah.
And werewolf. But she then tells Davenport that she actually ended up, like, killing her mother when she was born, so the name fits. It's, like, pretty shitty that she's a twin, and they're like, this is Owen, and this is Misery.
Yeah. Normal name, completely unhinged name.
Yeah. She's kind of looking down, and she thinks, like, the reception is comical, because, like, everybody hates everybody, you know. Davenport calls her brave and says, like, the Wares have two reasons to hate her. One, because she's a vampire, and the other, because she was the human collateral. And then he also says that Moreland also had to send his mate as the collateral. So his mate is now living in the vampire world, and he's married to a vampire. So, like, that sounds awful.
Yes. Imagine,
so she's just like
all that we know about these sorts of books, you know for a fact that a true mate is not letting you out of their sight.
Oh my god, never.
So, like, I get why they don't know that, but come on, guys.
Yeah, no. So yeah, she asks what mate means, because, like, obviously she's not reading the same romance books we are. But he's just like, oh, in a Hagrid fashion. I shouldn't have said that. And she realizes that's likely another reason that Morlow's going to hate her, because she's like, what if it's actually his wife, and, like, she could be killed, kind of thing. And then she's like, no, fuck this. It's not my fault. It's his own fault for wanting to, like, have this marriage. She's just kind of a pawn in it. So she goes to find her brother to ask about the mate thing, because she knows he's a gossip. But on the way, she hears her husband and two wares talking. And they're like, never heard of anything like it, ... The consequences if it really is her, ... It must have been a moment of confusion. She can't be your ... And you're like, the foreshadowing is thick in this one.
Wife.
And one says he shouldn't live with ... But then they're distracted by a dispute with two kids who are, like, playing with a toy. and it's broken on the ground, and it's like obviously a vampire and a were-child, and their parents are behind them, and like tensions are high. But then Lowe goes over and like fixes the toy and gives it back to the vampire, and he asks the were-kid to apologize, and he does, and then he just picks the kid up and brings him back to his table, and like the tension all dissipates. So he saved the day. Yay. He's a good guy. And then Lowe comes back to the two men and tells them to make sure it doesn't happen again. So they leave, I guess, to check the party. And then he says, I know you're there, Miss Lark. So she, like, watches down the stairs. She walks down the stairs. And his nose twitches because he's smelling her. Mm-hmm. And she just says that he should call her Misery, which, like, is just so funny to me. Because I'm like, I kind of hope he doesn't actually know what her name is. Like, obviously he does, but it's just so funny. But he agrees, and then they watch, like, a vampire and a were almost get into a fight, and he says that they had too much to drink, and she says she hopes that it wasn't from the were, and he's like, did you really just make a joke about that? And she's just like, sorry, it was in poor taste.
She jokes about a lot of stuff. She's very sarcastic, and I love it.
I love it so much. But she's, like, looking at him now, and she wonders if in a year she'll find his eyes as beautiful as she does now. And she wonders what Serena thought when she saw them. We're like, interesting. But Moreland, like, interrupts her thoughts and says that they're waiting for them. And he's like, we need to do our first dance. And then he takes her hand and takes her out to the dance floor. And then, I guess while they're dancing, she asks if she smells like sewers or something. And he just says, or something, which I love. And we also get a, like, tidbit that, like, vampires don't smell like other species. Like, they can't differentiate the scents of flowers and stuff. But they, like, hear, obviously, heartbeats, and they hear blood and, like, that kind of thing. And she thinks it's a pity that she smells bad to him because his blood is very nice to her. Aww. Interesting. He asks her if her father hates her, and she's just kind of confused. And we're like, obviously.
The answer is yes.
But he's like, I just need to know if you're under my protection, so I need to know if he's a threat, basically. But she just says, like, she's a symbol of goodwill and a collateral. And he asks if being a collateral is her full-time job. And she just says that she dabbles. And we get, like, she was fired from her tech job, obviously.
I dabble.
Which I love. And he kind of recaps that, like, she was a collateral for 10 years, and she had 24/7 guards, but had several assassination attempts, 2 of which were very close. And I think she thinks that she has the scars to prove it. And then she went back to the vampires, but she didn't go back for long. And then she got a fake identity to live among humans. And now she's gone to marrying a were, which is obviously super dangerous. And he's like, she has nothing to gain from it. So he's kind of wondering why she did it. And she's just like, I'm glad you read my file. And then she asks about his training in architecture, but he just ignores it. And he asks why her father doesn't care about her survival, which is just like
valid
brutal.
Point.
It is,
brutal, but valid.
Exactly. She says she isn't a victim and that she agreed to the marriage. And that he's in the same position, but he says he's an alpha, not a white hat hacker who only miraculously made it to 25.
Yikes.
It's like, ouch. But then she says she's an adult woman with agency and tools to make choices, so he can feel free to treat her accordingly, which I just love.
Yeah.
He just says fair and asks why she agreed to the marriage. And she nearly asks if he's ever heard of Serena Paris. But she already knows the answer, according to her. And she already has a plan, so she doesn't want to make him suspicious. And she says she likes to live dangerously, which is hilarious because of what happens. And he says desperately. And she says she doesn't know what he means. And he says, like, the vampires don't claim her unless they need something. And she hides among the humans. So she truly belongs nowhere. And she smells like she knows that. How, but okay. And then a knife comes at her, and someone says, vampire bitch. And it's a human dressed as a waiter. And, like, nobody was there to stop him, but Lowe just grabs the blade with his hand and stops it from, like, stabbing her in the throat.
Yikes.
And then he's just, like, dripping green blood, and he's holding her gaze and just says, nowhere. Which is just so shitty. Like, you belong nowhere. He's just saying nowhere to her. And then he says that they'll stay out of each other's way. And she just says, they say romance is dead. Which, I love it. I just love how sarcastic she is. And he breathes in, smelling her. And then he walks away, trailing blood.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, the quote from the next chapter is called, "He is under siege in his own home." Which I kind of like, because it sort of means, like, he's trying to avoid her, but he can't escape it. She's everywhere. And I really like it. So, a young voice wakes up Misery, saying that the room she is in used to be theirs. And it's the middle of the day, and Misery is annoyed, because vampires don't like the sun. Now, they don't dissolve or immediately, like, catch flame and burn to ash, but, like, the sun does really hurt them, and it saps their energy, and makes them really lethargic and weak, especially during, like, high sun times, like the summertime. And it can kill them if they're exposed for a long enough time. And, like, this kid is just, so, like, woke her up in the middle of the day, and is just sitting there asking her all these funny questions about being a vampire. Like, is it true you don't have a soul? Because you used to be dead. Now you drink blood. And, like, just keeps asking her all these questions and being an annoying child. And Misery's just like, who are you? And, like, why are you here in my room? And then she's like, I think this child is between 3 and 14.
I love it.
Like, she has no concept. Which I don't really understand, to be fair. Because
I find it hilarious. And
here's my...
I kind of agree,
but
though.
Here's my reason. So she's like, oh, I haven't been around human children. Which is fine. However, we're gonna find out that her and Serena sort of grew up together. So wouldn't you be able to, like, remember how...
No. Have you seen somebody in university nowadays? They look like babies. I'm pretty sure they're between 3 and 13, and they're in university.
Yeah, but, like... I just feel like if you and another child grew up together, you would have a knowledge of how they aged and be able to look at another child and think, oh yeah, similar. Like, 3 and 13,
I guess
that's a really big gap. And you grew up with another child.
I would probably not know between, like, 6 and 12, and I have a niece and nephews.
I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know. But I think it's a little silly. But whatever. So she has no idea how old this child is. And, like, she's kind of mean to the kid. And, like, asks the kid if she was bitten by a rabid dog. Like, to sort of, like, counteract, because the girl's like, do you have no soul? Because you're dead?
Yeah.
And she's like, no,
yeah.
Were you bitten by a rabid dog? Because this child is a werewolf, to sort of just say, hey, look, not all things about werewolves are true, therefore, not all things about werewolves are true. That makes the little girl laugh.
Which is funny.
And
because she was, like, trying to be mean, and it didn't work.
And Misery just thinks to herself she doesn't want to have any kids. So she wants to know how the girl got into her room. Because she's like, I know I locked the door. And, like, I'm worried for my safety that a werewolf will come in and, like, attack me. But the girl says, no, I had a spare key because this used to be my room. And just in case I had a nightmare, I could run to Lowe's room through the door. So they have, like, adjoining rooms.
Fair.
So this then Misery starts, like, red flags start waving in her brain because she's like, oh shit, this guy has a child, and she's, like, freaking out, so she asks about the parents. And, of course, then some, like, employee of Lowe's pops by named Juno and is really rude and just tells Misery that Anna's father is dead and then sends Anna away to play. And then tells Misery that Anna is Lowe's sister and just says, stay away from her. And it's like...
She's like, I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah, it's, like, pretty hard considering Anna's the one who, like, went to Misery, not the other way around.
Yeah, it's also her fault. She's the one that's supposed to be watching the child.
Yeah. So Juno tries to give her some house rules. First one, don't ask about pack business. Like, literally, she was like, so who are you? Are you Lowe's seconding a man? And she's like, don't ask about pack business. It's none of your business. Then she said, don't walk around and don't talk to anyone.
Great. What a great year she's going to have.
And it just said, like, that's to keep you safe and all of us safe. So that was fun.
Yeah.
So, Misery just reminds Juno that she lived amongst humans for 20 years. Oh. And she didn't kill one person in all that time that she lived amongst humans. But, like, Juno doesn't give a fuck. She just tells Misery that she doesn't like her and she thinks she's a pawn in all this. That's when Serena's cat comes into the room. I love that I love that we have a token cat in this book.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
Cats.
I love a cat.
So then she has to explain the cat to us, the reader. So she explains first vampires and pets, that they don't really mix. But her first caregiver had a dog in her purse, and Misery asked when she was gonna eat it, thinking that it was a snack for later. Only it wasn't.
Because, like, she's a child. How's she supposed to know? And she, like, I'm sure they grew up demonizing humans, too. It's just so funny.
Well, and, like, forget what I was gonna... Anyway, so, the lady with the dog in the purse quit after that incident. So that's fun.
Yeah, it seems like she had a lot of, I guess, foster parents.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess that's what you call it.
So since then, like, Misery has sort of tried to give animals a wide berth. Like, they growl at her, she growls at them. But she doesn't really understand why people have domestic pets. So Serena herself has only had the cat for a few days before
she disappeared, I guess.
My bad.
Yeah, it took a really long time for it to come out and say that she disappeared.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, like, before Misery took the cat, but she sort of did, but also sort of didn't. So
yeah, she didn't really want it.
It didn't really fit, and I was trying to think of, like, another word for her taking the cat.
Her take, yeah. Kidnapped.
Catnapped. Anyway, apparently Serena, like, just didn't show up for laundry day one day, and, like, just stopped answering her phone, and Misery was just saying that, like, they didn't live together because Serena wanted something that belonged to her alone, because she started in an orphanage and then moved in with Misery as a child, so she's never had her own space. So Misery broke into Serena's house to look around and feed the cat before making a police report. But the police brushed her off, thinking that they just had a fight, and that Serena left just without telling her anything.
Which, like, I guess isn't super uncommon in Friends to, like, go somewhere.
Isn't it, though?
It would be weird. But, like, I guess the police are like, your friend's not going to tell you everything. And she's like, but where all the other one has.
Yeah.
Like, in this case, it would be weird.
Would, yeah.
So, yeah.
So, she went back, I assume, to the police station like 3 times and finally got a missing persons report filled out. But, like, no one did anything with it.
Hashtag the police.
So, because Misery was like freaking out and needed to find her BFF, she went to her apartment to like go through all of her stuff to see if she could get any clues. Very like Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes of her.
Yeah.
And then she was like, shit, there's a cat. I need to take care of this cat. And the cat, when she went there, was playing with something. And it turned out to be, conveniently, a little bit of Serena's planner. And
imagine.
It was from the day she disappeared.
Wild.
How convenient that the cat chose that piece of planner to rip out and play with.
Is it like a Crookshanks situation?
Maybe. Anyway, so it was just like this random string of letters, but it turns out it was actually in a language that Misery and Serena invented when they were kids to like speak or to like relay messages or something without anyone else finding out. So she translated it, and on the day Serena went missing, she was supposed to meet with someone named L.E. Moreland.
Interesting.
Yes. Do we...
We don't know yet.
What?
Sorry, what were you going to ask? I jumped the shark.
We know what her husband's name is, right?
I don't know if we do.
Okay. All right.
I don't think we do. I think it's still a surprise.
Okay.
Wait. No, we do.
Wait. Do we?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. In my part, her dad says Alpha Moreland or whatever. And she's like, I'm going to marry him in her head.
Right.
And she agrees. Yeah. So we knows. Yeah. Yep. We know. We know everything.
So essentially, her husband is the guy that Serena wrote down.
Yeah. Lowe Moreland.
Yeah. So then we move to the next chapter, and there's like something written above it, and it says, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But we don't really know what that means as of yet.
Yeah. That's the like top of the paragraph.
Yeah. Right.
And by paragraph, I meant chapter. Yeah. Sorry. Top of the paragraph to you. Killing it.
So Misery is describing the drive now to the warehouse. So, the warehouse.
What are we doing?
I don't know. To the werewolf house.
I struggle because I have also written it as where, but when I look at it, I'm like, were. Because we are. Yeah. I'm like, it's the were house. And I'm like, shit, wrong. But when I'm typing it out, I'm like, I'm going to know what this means. Spoiler alert. I do not.
But yeah, so okay, she's driving to the werewolf house. And then I start thinking, it's a brick house.
I love it.
So like apparently it's really beautiful from the outside and it works with the outdoorsy feel. It's like in the middle of the woods. It's giving cabin vibes, but it's quite large. Open windows. It's a Pinterest house.
Yes.
And she's obviously really worried about avoiding sunlight and because, you know, there's windows everywhere. And she's worried about the temperatures because the werewolves, as we all know, tend to run warm. So they keep the temperatures lower. Vampires are always chilly.
Which is like when you're in an office setting.
Yes.
And they keep it cold because of the patriarchy. It's fucking true, though. They do keep it cold because of the patriarchy. So I'm a vampire because I'm always cold.
Oh, my. That's true.
Yeah.
It is actually scientifically proven.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's just worried about fitting in with the werewolves.
Imagine.
But then she also thinks about, like, how she has essentially been facing people. Like, she's just worried about being in a house full of people that hate. I say people, you know what I mean, though, right? Like, werewolves.
Yeah.
That all hate vampires.
Yeah.
But then she's, like, thinking, she's like, because she was the collateral, she spent years going to diplomatic functions with people who hate vampires. And she remembers meeting an old lady with, like, a bracelet made of vampire fangs. And it, like, traumatized her. And, like, she didn't want to go to any more. But they were like, too bad! And made her go anyway. So that's fun.
She has some very traumatic childhood experiences that are just like, ha, funny.
Yeah. And, like, apparently it said, like, she faced a lot more of that sort of thing as she, like, grew up. Like, people would wear vials of blood around their neck and, like, necklaces made of teeth, and it just sort of was, like, a symbol of how unhappy people were with the alliance between vampires and humans.
Yeah.
And essentially she was expecting worse things from werewolves. Because, like, if that was what she was getting from people that she was supposed to be in alliance with, what's gonna happen now to the people that hate her guts? That she's, like, I guess this is considered an alliance now because her and dude are married, but, like...
Yeah, but I guess she was the 11th 10-year collateral. So, like, after 100 years of alliance, you think that that humans would be better, but I expect nothing of humans. We're all trash.
Yeah, that's true.
So... But yeah, you would think that the ones who are actually actively killing them and only just started an alliance would be worse than the humans.
Yes.
That even the old lady couldn't have been over, she couldn't have been over, I guess maybe she could be over 100.
I doubt it.
But probably not. Like, it's like passed down bullshit, I guess. Yeah.
So it just skips now to her getting a tour by some, like, scaredy cat werewolf named Alex. And he's just, like, afraid to, like, get near her and, like, really afraid to talk to her and afraid to do anything. So, he, like, shows...
I find him funny.
I do too. He shows her, like, the different rooms. And then he shows the kitchen. Then he's really awkward. And I'm like, who put him in charge of this? And who put him in charge of asking her this question? So he asks her if she wouldn't mind putting her blood in the second provided fridge. So they went out and got another fridge for the kitchen for her to put her blood in, because people were, like, gonna be grossed out with her blood bags being in the fridge with the food.
I just feel like they should have got her a mini fridge for her bedroom.
Right?
Like, why wouldn't you do that?
And, like...
Because she's already said that vampires eat, drink in private. So wouldn't you... it confuses me.
But, like, in my head, do you know what I think of when I think of her going to the kitchen for blood? You don't know.
I don't, but I'm already laughing.
All I can think of for some reason is her going and getting a bag from the fridge, getting a bowl, and her putting the blood in a bowl, and then eating it like soup.
Oh, okay. I just think of, like,
a straw.
Shoving a straw and sucking it back.
Anyway, I don't know why, but, like...
I like it.
This is just where my mind goes, and I'm like, that seems interesting. Anyway, so, like, yeah, so that's what I want to know. Who elected him to ask her to put her blood in the second fridge? Should that not have been, like, not somebody really scaredy-cat-ish?
shouldn't that have been her husband's job since this is their house?
Yeah, but he doesn't talk to her.
I wonder why.
Anyway, he also then asks her, he's like, so, do you rather AB or O negative or what? And she's like, dude, that's not a real thing. She's like, I drink cold blood and it's flavorless, so I don't have a preference. Anyway, so like, he shows her around more of the house and she loves it and thinks it's just right. And then her and Alex sort of talk about their creatures, like sort of talk about how they function as monsters.
Yeah, fair.
So like, I guess she wanted to know some information about werewolves, and I guess Alex tells her that werewolves shift, and they mostly retain their human brain, with some wolf instincts on top of it. Like, when you're in wolf form, hunting takes over your actions. Like, if you get into a hunt, the wolf takes over. And then she responds that vampires only feed once a day, more if it's warm out, and they do not turn into bats. So we're just, I guess, it's sort of like
establishing the world.
Yeah, establishing the lore.
Yeah.
I guess Misery asks Alex about Lowe's second in command and wants to know who it is. And we get that because Lowe is the alpha, he has 12 seconds. Not the time frame, 12 seconds, but like 12 seconds.
I liked that. Good joke.
Thank you. He has 12 seconding commands, one from each huddle. I love that, a huddle.
I do too, it's cute.
Except for one. There's, right now, he's missing one. He only has 11 right now. Because Gabrielle is missing. And Misery wonders, like, who that is. Like, is that his mate or his wife or something? And I don't know why she made that leap. And also, he can't have a wife. He's married to her.
No. But we already know that Gabrielle is the one that was exchanged as collateral.
Mm-hmm.
And the governor said that that was his mate.
Oh, right. I forgot. Sorry. My brain has been mushy.
That's fine.
Alex then responds in kind that werewolves can mostly control their shift. So, like, they're not usually controlled by, like, they're not overly controlled by the moon. Some of them are. But, like, most of them kind of are. I don't know. It's very confusing because they were like, we can control shifting for the most part. However, very strong alphas can avoid shifting during a full moon altogether.
Yeah, it's like strong wolves can shift when there is no moon, and also strong wolves cannot shift when there is a moon. But if you're not strong, you can only shift during the moon, I guess. That's kind of what I took from it.
I guess. It's just weird that he's like, oh, most of us can control the shift. But it's like, if you're not strong, then you can't. And most of them are not strong. So therefore, wouldn't most of them not be able to control the shift?
Yeah, and I also think later we find out he's like 14 or something. Like, I don't actually know. Sorry, I don't actually know if that's him or not. But it's not. There's another one we find out is 14. But he feels like he's 14.
Yeah. Anyway, Alex just says, like, ooh, you know, only super strong, powerful alphas can avoid shifting during the full moon. And Lowe is a super powerful alpha. Oh my god.
Alpha?
He's a super powerful alpha. And apparently he challenged the previous alpha, Roscoe, and he won. And Roscoe died. And Misery's like, oh my god, he killed someone? And he's like, no, he did not. He died in the process of being challenged. So apparently that's not death. He didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like they feel like it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's expected, so it's not tragedy death. Like, I don't understand.
Lowe isn't even at the house right then. So, like, she's getting the tour and Lowe's not even there. And Misery asks Alex, like, why did he marry me? Like, obviously, we're not in love. Like, he doesn't love me. And Alex said, love has nothing to do with it. It's about...
Thank you.
Yeah. And he just says it's about protection and sending a message. It's not like she's his true mate or anything. Wow. Like... it's funny.
But I can't fault her for being like, yeah, because I already know his true mate isn't here. Like, it's so much like, it's miscommunication, but not in the way that I hate it the most. Like, I hate when the characters don't talk to each other, but like, when they do talk to each other and there's a miscommunication because someone said something different, I'm like, I can't fault it as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, she's not going to go talk. Also, I don't think we've seen him since the marriage.
No. He's just nowhere.
So, like, she can't go talk to him and be like, sorry, your mate's fucking in the vampire territory, and him be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, you know.
Yeah.
It's just anti-communication. It's not...
Yeah, it's not a miscommunication trope. It's more of a...
It's like forced non-proximity. Because forced proximity is like the jam. But it's like at this point, they're like forced apart. Can't have conversations.
Oh my god, I need to take a second and tell you about a book that you need to read. Okay, so it's called Sia. S-I-A.
S-I-A, okay.
I got it on Kindle, obviously. It's by Eden O'Neill.
Okay.
It is an Anastasia retelling.
You cannot fuck with me.
and mafia romance.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
No vampires?
No.
That would be like the third thing.
That would be a trifecta. But yeah.
Is there a Dimitri?
No.
Because not Disney, but Pixar, whatever it was before Disney bought it, I don't know. Who did DreamWorks?
Who did Anastasia?
Yeah.
I think it was DreamWorks.
I think so. Anyway, it wasn't Disney, and then Disney bought it. Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. But that was my favorite Disney-esque movie growing up.
I know it was.
The best.
Your favorite princess movie.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Hence why I had to stop to tell you about it.
It is written down.
Okay, sorry. Back to it. So, later on, I guess, like, her and Alex just finished the conversation. She goes to her room, hangs out. Later on, she thinks back to some online sleuthing she did before getting married. And she sleuthed Lowe Moreland, because that's the name that was on Serena's little piece of paper. But she doesn't find much of anything. And, like, remember, she is, like, a tech-savvy, hackery person.
Yeah.
So she can find some shit. She doesn't. She does find a little something hidden in a server. She finds reference to him and someone named Garcia and how they were meeting the rest. So she's on to something.
Yeah, and Garcia's the name of the new governor, isn't it?
I think so. The new human governor.
Yes. I'm pretty sure.
I believe
it's too many. It's too hard to look through.
I know.
So we're just gonna.
Yeah.
If we're wrong, sorry.
Yeah. So, like, for some reason, this sort of development, she's like, yep, Lowe is definitely behind Serena's disappearance, And now she's like, I just need to get behind his firewall to see what happened. So even before she was married, as soon as she found out that, like, from her dad that she was going to marry him, she got a plan. Like, that's why she didn't put up a fight. That's why she wanted to marry him, was so that she could get to his house and get past his firewall, aka, I don't know anything about computers, but, like, I guess you need to plug into a computer in someone's home to get past the firewall they have put up against outsiders. So that's sort of why she went along with the whole thing in the first place, so that she could get to his house, get on his computer, and, like, see what was up. So she is by herself, and she's looking for Lowe's office so that she can, like, hack into his computer, when this young werewolf gets in, like, just sort of gets all up in her face, I guess. And, like, he's insulting her and just sort of, like, being a douchebag. And he tells her his name is Max. And he's speaking to her really aggressively, and he's suggesting to her, like, that he is not okay because she's there, and, like, she shouldn't be here, and he's boxing her in against the wall. And then he tells her that his father and sister both died and that they were hunted down by vampires. So, like, he's really mad, and he thinks that, like, she needs to pay and blah, blah, blah. So he's about to attack her.
Of course.
Yeah. So she uses her self-defense methods that she has to choke him out against the wall. And, like, he's really angry, but, like, feels that she's got him secured, and then she can see that he's scared, and then he looks resigned, and, like, he's calling her a ton of bad names, and she, like, bares her fangs at him to just be like, dude, leave me alone. And then someone shows up and yanks her away, and obviously it's Lowe, because he hasn't been around so far, and then all of a sudden he shows up. And even though he's grabbing her and hauling her away, his grip was gentle. Unlike Max, who grabbed her and, like, was forceful, because he's meanie.
Forceful? Bad.
Unless you ask for it. And I mean, like, actually ask for it, unless you like it a little rough.
Yes, yeah. But I just mean in more of a, like, he's forcing himself on her, so he's immediately the bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah. But it's also like every wolf in this house has been mad at her, so I'm, like, not surprised that this guy is too.
Yeah. And taking it out on her.
Yeah. Which is shitty for her, because, like, we know inside of her head, but, like, I also understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So.
Like, it's really hard to trust an enemy that you've hated and fought against for 100 years. So, I guess he grabbed her and I think, like, pushed her to the opposite wall and stands in between her and Max. And, like, initially I'm like, oh, he's protecting her. But then he asks Max what happened, and Max lies and puts on an act. And, like, be like, oh my god, she tried to bite me. I saw my life flash before my eyes. And, like, was, like, laying it on real thick.
Yeah. I do want to know in this world how vampires can actually kill wolves. Because it's like... And I know it's hard to say because she doesn't actually live among vampires, but she's like, we don't bite anybody. And I'm like, so, what? Wait, well, not ever. We'll learn next week. But I'm also like, how would you fight a wolf?
Good question. Anyway, so Alex and Juno, the B word, and a few other people show up. And, like, obviously everyone believes Max.
Yeah.
And even Lowe is like, oh, Max, go check the doctor. Go get checked by the doctor. Which is sort of why I was like, is he protecting her when he got in between her and Max? Because then he's like, oh, Max. So, like...
Yeah.
While...
He's keeping her away from him so she doesn't attack him.
Yeah, and, like, I guess my issue is, like, we know this is a quote-unquote romantasy. Or paranormal romance, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, like, we know, as people, that our two main characters...
H-E-A. H-E-A.
Yeah, right? We see it coming. So, am I reading into this, him putting himself between the two of them, am I reading into it as a sort of, he already has feelings for her and he's protecting her? Or does he actually, is he not doing that? Because I don't like that.
I've read Next Week and I know the answer, so I can't say.
Great.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me after.
We'll get answers next week.
I love it. Anyway, so Misery is, of course, she's not a wallflower, right? Like, she is very open to defending herself. And she's like, no, dude, like, this guy just tried to kill me. But, like, Lowe is like, no. And he hauls her into his office to get the real story, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But of course, Juno is there. And, like, who likes Juno? Nobody. And, like, who thought that she was invited? She wasn't.
Yeah. Well, she soon told that.
Yeah. So Misery tries to explain that Max wanted and tried to kill her. But Juno keeps accusing her of lying. It's like, no, you're lying. He wouldn't do that. Like, we just need a bitch girl for the sake of having one.
Yeah.
And Lowe's like, tell me the truth. And she's like, dude, I am. And then she's like, Max essentially... So she mentions that Max tried to... didn't try. He told her that other vampires killed his family, and that's why he wanted her to die. And that's when Lowe sort of pauses. And he sort of looks at Juno, and she's like, no, he can't be a loyal. And then Juno's like, you're lying. He's not a loyal. And Misery's just like, I don't even know what that is. So, like,
and neither does the reader.
Yeah, neither do we. So we're like, what the fuck? Then Lowe tells Juno to get out. And she's...
I love it.
Me too. She's, like, really mad. And she wants Lowe to punish Misery for lying. And I'm like, yes, please. Woo! But when they're alone, there's this, like, tension. And they talk and joke lightly. And it's really awkward. And they joke about her getting herself killed and him having to bury her body under the plumbagos, which is a type of plant. And then Misery makes, like, I guess, like, Lowe says something about how much her sister likes the lumbagos or something. Or the plumbagos, my bad. And, like, Misery makes a comment, and Lowe just misconstrues it as a threat.
Yeah.
And, like, she's like, no, dude, I was joking. Like, take a joke.
Because they were joking before that, and then she's like, ha ha ha, something. And he's like, that's too far. You have taken it too far.
Yeah, he's like, are you threatening my sister? And she's like, no. Like, chill out.
Not even a little bit, please.
Yeah. And it just seems like he doesn't like her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, completely doesn't like her.
Which I get where she's coming from.
And then there's a comment about... Misery makes some comment about her dripping some blood from her palm onto a sheet and posting it in the square as, like, proof that they consummated their marriage. Because, like, that is something they did in the olden days.
Yes.
And Lowe's like, well, there's no...
And sometimes in fantasy books.
Yeah, and Lowe responds that there's no expectation of virginity on her part. So he's like, essentially, you're a whore. And then she...
Well, I don't know if he meant that.
No, but...
I just think he meant... Yeah, I think he meant...
You're not a virgin.
You're a 25-year-old woman.
But then she's like, well, I love surprising people.
Which, like, I hate a virgin trope more than most people. But in this book, I was like, nah, I get it.
Yeah.
Who's she gonna have sex with? Because, like, she doesn't want the humans to know she's a vampire. All the vampires hate her.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. Valid.
Who?
Yep. Anyway, I just thought that was a really funny... And, like, he just sort of, like, lifts his eyes. He's like, it doesn't say anything.
Yeah, because he's probably, like...
What the fuck?
Super turned on by it, because I don't love that part. No. That's the part that I don't love.
Yeah. It's the reaction to the virginity more so of the decision to hold on to it.
Yes. Or the not decision. Like, I don't think she made a decision. I think it was just, like, she didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's more so the, like, I can be the first and only, and you're like, ugh.
No, I'm gonna cheat on you.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. So she just explains in her head, not to him, that she obviously hasn't had any romances because all the vampires see her as a traitor for being the collateral, which I don't understand because it was not her choice.
She was 6 when it was announced and 8 when she left.
Yeah,
and 18 when she came back, which is still not a fully developed human person.
Yeah, but
vampire.
You're a traitor. Yes, that was all my fault. I decided.
Yeah.
She created, actually, this whole collateral program in utero when she wasn't even...
Minus 90 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so the vampires all see her as a traitor, so she can't have sex with any of them. And humans are afraid of her once they find out what she is. So she doesn't have any options. So really, werewolf could be a nice segue.
Foreshadowing!
So Lowe asks how she learned to defend herself, because I guess he saw her in the defensive stance with Max. And she tells him that her and her foster sister, aka Serena, learned how after getting tired of all the attempts on her life. And he was like, oh, I thought there was 7. And she was like, there were 7 good ones. She was like, there was a lot of really bad ones. So, like, she's very blasé about the whole people trying to kill her thing.
Yeah. And, like, obviously she has a bit of self-defense skills because she went against the child werewolf, Max guy. But it's like, I don't know, you think she'd be better at it.
But, yeah, anyway. She probably hasn't really had any practice.
And no, other than, like, I think they just took human self-defense classes when they were kids or something.
Yeah. Then he tells her that... So, like, I guess he just tells her that she is under his protection, but he needs her to behave. And in my head, I'm like, how has she not so far? Like, she's defended herself, but, like, he left her alone. So, like, how is that her fault? And also, telling her to behave just feels very juvenile to me, and I don't like it.
I agree.
Then she asks if she's dismissed, and he says yes, so she turns to go and leave, but then she turns back, and she's about to ask about the cat, because the cat is in the house, so she wants to let him know that the cat exists. But when she turns to look at him, his eyes are closed, and he looks, like, tortured and in agony.
Imagine.
And she just, I know, she's like, oh my god, are you okay? She's like, I took a bath. And he was like, and she's like, did that not help? Did that not make it better? And he says, no, the situation has not improved for him. So, she thinks she still stinks. So she asks if the cat can roam around. She was like, I brought a cat. Do you mind if he's here?
I guess for now it's been in her room solely.
I don't know. It's funny because then she makes a joke and she says, will Max charge the cat with racketeering? I love it. It's such a funny joke.
Probably will.
But then Lowe was like, of course, the cat is welcome. And she's like, I wonder what that feels like. And then just leaves.
Fucking love it. What a great last line of a conversation.
Is, yeah. Like, you sure know how to make someone feel like shit.
Yep.
And I love it. Then there is another quote. It says, like, at the top of the next chapter, being gone is relief and sheer agony. Huh. Anyway, in the next week, she's literally escorted everywhere and she hates it. Like, she can't even go to the kitchen for a blood bag.
Which is why she should have
a mini fridge.
A fridge in her room. But also, she should just be allowed to roam.
Yeah.
As well.
But I guess she's worried about the other people living in the house trying to kill her. And so is everyone.
Well, true.
And she's also rotted because now she can't snoop. Like, someone's following her, so she can't really get onto Lowe's computer.
Yeah.
And she actually thinks that, like, her life right now is not that different from when she was the collateral with the humans. Oh, and when she became an adult and, like, absorbed herself into the human world, I guess. Like, she feels like her life is the same. Because she didn't really have any friends or hobbies, and she didn't really have a purpose. She just worked to make money and then have a house. But, like, she didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that's what she said. She said once she stopped being the collateral, her only goal was to make money to pay rent. And then she remembers something that Serena said to her. That she was suspended, untethered from everything, and not moving towards anything. Very wise.
Yeah.
And she thinks about how after her and Serena left the collateral world, she didn't jump into her new life because she didn't want to get close to people. So she filled her night with baths and walks, but nobody would give her internet access. And they confiscated all of the stuff that she had that could turn into Wi-Fi. And she only got to talk to Venya, who hates her guts, once a week to make sure she's alive.
Great.
But again, Venya hates her guts, so it's not like a pleasant conversation. She's not talking to someone who cares about her. It's just, are you alive? Cool, bye.
Just checking so we don't have to kill the were we have.
So she never sees Lowe anymore, apart from that night. But sometimes she will hear him playing with Anna through, like, the wall of their room. Like, her room is attached to his. So, one night, the older guy that was at the wedding that spoke to Lowe is named Mick. He is her detail, so he's the one guarding her. And he tells her that she has a phone call with her brother. And, like, he's actually decently nice to her in this phone call. And, like, in general, like, she said that, like, they used to have a really good relationship before she was the collateral, so, like, it's okay. So, like, he's not a dick to her in general.
Yeah.
And she likes him. So, there's that. So, Mick takes her to the video call with her brother, and she thinks that he's gonna, like, leave her alone so she can talk freely, but he doesn't.
Of course. Yeah. Obviously, they would never.
They would never. So, she talks to him a little bit about married life, and, like, she was like, is there anything you need from me or father need or anything? And he's like, no, I just wanted to make sure you're still alive. And she asks, like, she tells him that she misses him so much, and he, like, her saying that, I guess vampires aren't super lovey-dovey in general.
It kind of seems like that, but we also just, like, we're from a perspective of someone who left the vampires at 8, came back at 18 for, like, a month and then left again.
I guess.
But her family's not super lovey.
No.
So I'm assuming.
Yeah.
They're not.
So, well, this is the thing. So she tells him that she misses him so much. And he's like, what? Like, what? Like, he says, oh, no, like, tell me what's wrong. But, like, he immediately knows that she's trying to tell him something. Like,
yeah, it's not actually what it sounds like.
They wouldn't normally, like, talk about their emotions.
Yeah.
So it's sort of code. So she thinks in her head that, like, they used to be really close before she left to be the collateral, especially since they were twins. And
we love a twin story in this podcast.
Good and bad.
So many twin stories.
So she said, like, if anybody was ever mean to her, like, they were mysteriously hurt the next day, and, like, nobody would take credit for it or anything like that. So, like, she always assumed it was her brother protecting her. And then she thinks of how, like, their birth, when it was first shown that they would both be coming out, it was considered a blessing because vampires really struggle with fertility. So, like, having one kid is really special. Having 2 is, like, insane. But their mom died in childbirth. So they say that Owen, her brother, weakened her, and Misery dealt the death blow. Which is actually why they call her Misery.
Which is insane.
It's terrible. They literally call her Misery because of her mom dying. It's insane.
Yeah.
So then she starts, like, reminiscing about a memory of walking in a forest with their father, which, like, never happened, but again, she's setting the scene to, like, try and tell him something and give him a message.
Yeah.
And they sort of reminisce about, and, like, they pepper in the old, like, the vampire tongue, so that she can ask him about Serena and tell Owen to look out for Loyals. So, like, she's just trying to cover it up. And obviously Mick does not suspect anything, and he just takes her back to her room after the call. So she takes to writing code on her laptop, so she can't publish it or anything, but she can still type it out. And she loses track of time after this phone call, and when she looks up, Anna's there, and she's in a tutu, staring at her, and it creeps her out. And I'm like, how do you not hear a child? How do you not hear anybody coming into your room?
Yeah. I guess if you're not used to people coming into your room.
I guess. So, Misery asks how Anna got in, and she just pointed to the window, and essentially she got on the roof and then climbed down through the window. Anna asks what her name is, and she tells her, she's like, my name is Misery. However, Anna thinks her name is Mirazy.
Which is hilarious.
Mirazy, not Misery. So Anna sees that Misery is on her laptop and asks if she can play a game on it. And then she says, I know that those have games because I play GTA. Well, she doesn't call it GTA, but they play.
Yeah, she, like, comments on what it's about.
Yeah, they, like, go pick up ladies and, like, take cars. So Misery's like, you play Grand Theft Auto? And she's like, yeah, with Alex. And Misery's like, is that game appropriate for a child of 3? And Misery's just like, I'm 7. And it's like, yeah, you are, but still, like, Misery in her head's like, wow, I did pretty good. I got well within my age range.
It's like almost halfway between 3 and
13 or something, didn't she say?
Whatever she said, yeah. Not actually, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I guess Misery sets up Snake on her computer for her, and she plays that for a little bit. And I guess she's sitting on Misery's lap, and Misery catches herself going to, like, tuck hair behind Anna's ear. And that, like, freaks her out. She's like, no. No love. Nothing. So Anna then goes to leave. She's like, I have to go. My cat is waiting. And Misery's like, I'm sorry, who? And she's like, my cat. She's like, no. Like, it's my friend Serena's cat, and sort of gets a little bit annoyed about it because it's, Serena's still missing, so it's still quite fresh.
Yeah.
But Anna says that the cat's name is Sparkles. And Misery says, like, no, that's my friend Serena's cat, and it's a boy. And, like, when we find her, when they tell her, she's gonna have to work it out with Serena.
Yeah, she really gives up on it easily. Yeah. She's like, no, that's my friend's cat. And then she's like, fuck it. Like, she's not here.
I don't really care.
She's like, the cat hates me anyway, so if you're gonna love it, you can fight with Serena.
So, Anna asks Misery about, like, sleep situations a little bit. And mentions that Lowe doesn't sleep because he had pneumonia.
Yeah.
I also had pneumonia. I do sleep still.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, too.
It'd be rough.
It'd be very rough. So Anna's like, okay, I gotta go by. And she goes to, like, climb back out the window. And Misery's like, no, stop, take the door. And, like, she's trying to be like, look, like, you and Lowe can have fun in his bedroom. Wouldn't that be fun? And she's trying really hard to, like, sell her coming in and taking the hallway or the stairs or whatever.
And not climbing out a fucking window and falling to her death.
And, like, trying
to
shimmy up a drain pipe so that...
Yeah.
So that you can get up on the roof. So... After she says, no, you can't, she doesn't even, like, stop. And Misery tries to convince her, like I said. But Anna's like, no, I can't go have fun with Lowe because he's not even home. He's off dealing with the lollipops. Those gosh darn lollipops. And so, like, Misery is freaking out about Anna climbing out the window. And she doesn't want to hurt. So she doesn't want Anna hurt.
Yeah.
And
which is new. A new feeling.
Yeah. Especially since every conversation they've had, she's been annoying.
Yeah.
So she tries to forbid Anna from climbing out the window. Like, Anna's still ready to go. And she's like, no, I forbid you. Then Anna's like, you're a vampire. You can't really tell me you can't really tell me what to do. And Misery's like, well, you got me there. And just says, like, watches her out the window to make sure she's okay. And then she realizes she's invested in the safety of Anna. And she asks, she's like, is my husband / roomie gonna be in the presence tonight? Apparently not. He's off to work. So she decides to get out a hairpin to get to work, unblocking the room.
Which is fun. A good ending to the...
Yeah. Her trying to pick a lock is a great ending.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that is our first week of Bride. So, if anyone wants to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So, next week we will be reading chapters 7 to 15 of Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.